In this video we are going to take a closer look at the September Deathwatch tournament results, as well as a quick detour featuring the recent Metawatch article posted on Warhammer Community. The mentioned article once more covers faction win rates and hints at the release date of the next balanced data slate. Beyond that, the tournaments covered are the games of Westeros XII, the first Grand Tournament Grotkicken and the No Retreat 11. Over the course of the video, we will go through all the relevant results and lists in an attempt to find out whether the aged Deathwatch supplement can still compete with the more recent codex releases. For the final part, I will offer my personal conclusions and a quick wrap up.
Welcome to SwissHammer, your channel for modeling in Warhammer 40k. My name is Tammer and I will be guiding you through this video.
Before we dive right into the tournament results, a quick word on the latest Metawatch article published on Warhammer Community last week, focusing once more on faction win rates. As stated in the article, the graph shows the latest data gathered from over 100,000 games played using the War Zone Nephilim mission pack since its release in June this year. What stands out here for us are the following two things. First of all, the keen observer might notice the absence of the Deathwatch as a separate entry. As is explained in the footnote of the article, the majority of Space Marine supplements, including the Deathwatch, have been combined in a single Adeptus Astartes entry because, according to GW, not all events include the corresponding supplements in their data. In fact, only Blood Angels, Dark Angels and Space Wolves apparently had a sufficiently high sample size for them to consider it, and coincidentally, none of these chapters have been doing all that poorly to begin with. Anyway, the second thing to note here is the combined Adeptus Astartes entry's abysmal win rate of 39%, sharing the bottom rank with AdMech. Where it gets completely absurd though, as far as I'm concerned, is when they point out how AdMech might be in need of help, while Space Marine win rate is being artificially lowered by newer players, and the fact that opponents might be the most familiar playing against them. Where to start here? First of all, they acknowledge in the very same article that the accuracy of win rate is of course dependent on sample size, of which Space Marines have plenty. While there may indeed be a higher percentage of beginners picking up the faction, that same reason, namely relative ease to play, is what enables meta chasers to easily hop onto faction in case a codex supplement turns out to be strong enough. 8th edition Iron Hands anyone? If Space Marines were good, they would be played a lot at competitive events, simple as that. As veteran viewers of this channel well know, I have been monitoring Space Marine attendance at bigger tournaments over months, and these numbers have been consistently dwindling as more powerful codex releases came out over the course of 9th edition. With that decrease in Space Marine numbers, players are more likely to encounter the other better performing factions anyway, at which point the learning curve for those encounters increases. Overall, I find it a bit strange how GW usually claims to focus on balancing matched play for the best overall experience, but then so easily dismisses Space Marine win rates due to Garage Hammer players in this article. A clear contradiction as far as I'm concerned. Link to the full article is in the description. But anyway, moving on to the first tournament, the games of Westeros XII 40k, an event with 92 players over 5 rounds, which took place early September. Here we have of course Mikael Klangeby going 4-1-0 with the Deathwatch Army of Renown, ending up on rank 3. A while ago, I did a full interview with Mikael, where we discussed this specific tournament, including the list, matchups and secondaries. Furthermore, we also discussed competitive Deathwatch in War Zone Nephilim in general. If you have not checked it out yet, the link is in the description. In short, he still rocked his signature Army of Renown list with double Indomitor, double Klangeby style Proteus and a single Spectre skill team. Of special note here is that the Watchmaster is carrying the Tomb of Ectoclades, which can act as a sort of mini Specialism Extremis, now that starting CP has become far more scarce. Another thing worth pointing out is that Mikael has been transitioning his Indomitor kill teams from a lot of aggressors to a lot of Bolter Inceptors, which goes particularly well with his very defensive playstyle due to secondary choices such as the long vigil and banners. In this particular case, he has no drastic need to play aggressively and can deal with an opponent far better at range. Moving on to the second tournament, the first Grand Tournament Grotkicken, an event featuring 31 players over 5 rounds. Here we have a single Deathwatch player, Florian Schmidt, ending up on rank 10, going 3-2 with the Army of Renown. His matchups were as following. Round 1 a win against Iron Hands, followed by 2 losses against Death Guard and Chaos Space Marines, and then round 4 and 5 wins against Nids and Blood Angels. Looking at his list, for HQs, he went pretty light with just a Primaris Chaplain on bike carrying the beacon and chalice, as well as a Watchmaster with Adept of the Codex. In my War Zone Nephilim review, I did a deep dive on the maths involved here, and I argued that unless you are close to 100% sure that you will extremis in turn 1, taking Adept of the Codex is no longer worth it. However, as we will see in just a moment, given his comparably high starting CP of 3 and the rest of his list, that might just have been what he was up to. For troops, he went with a full 6 kill teams, out of which 4 were Proteus kill teams. 2 featured the classic infantry bike combo, with 3 veteran bikers and 2 van vets, while the third packed a ton of combi flamers. I assume that he delivered this kill team through the drop pod he also included in the list. Then last but not least, he rocked yet another Proteus kill team with a mixture of combi flamers, a Terminator with a heavy flamer, as well as Van Vet with hand flamers. This in combination with Specialism Extremis can be very brutal, and in case TOs allow, you will basically both auto-hit and auto-wound with a ton of shots. To round the list up, he went with 2 Spectres kill teams, both of them packing 5 Last Fossil Eliminators, which are amazing now for their points. Overall, this is a refreshing list that did pretty well, and certainly something to take some inspiration from. Moving on to the third and final tournament, the No Retreat 11, an event featuring 26 players over 5 rounds. Here we have a grand total of 2 Deathwatch players, neither of which did amazing, with Vicente Naranjo on rank 13 going 2-1-2 and Martin Waller on rank 22 going 1-4. Nonetheless, I wanted to take a moment to talk about Vicente Naranjo's list, which would be the kind of fluff list much to my liking. Playing a non-Army of Renown list, he brought along Inquisitor Eisenhorn as an agent of the Imperium. Then for HQs, he had a captain on bike with the Dominus Sieges, as well as a Primaris Chaplain on bike. For troops, he went pretty basic with double 40s and a single Indomitor, which basically just included their base troop stacks. For elites, he maxed out with Blade Guard veterans, a Chief Apothecary with Selfless Healer, as well as 3 Redemptor Dreadnoughts. To round the list up, he casually threw in a Fire Raptor Gunship. Now, throwing competitiveness out of the window, this has a lot of potential for some amazing garage hammer, and one has to acknowledge that he went 2-1-2 with this at a tournament. Me personally, I would have brought a more competitive Inquisitor, such as Kyriadraxus. If you haven't checked out my video dedicated to bringing an agent of the Imperium along, where I also accidentally reveal my secret crush on Inquisitor Graveaxe, the link is in the description. But anyway, on a more serious note, further changes I would do is basically replacing the base troops with infiltrators and incursors, which would be more beneficial with their concealed positions ability, as well as the deep strike denial bubble on at least one squad of infiltrators. Given the 3 Redemptors, a Tech Marine might be a better pick over the Captain on bike. The Dominus Sieges is sort of redundant with Armor of Contempt in many situations, and you can always get some hit rerolls through the Wisdom of the Ancients stratagem. Either way, cool list. One day I'm going to get myself a Fire Raptor in the service of the Deathwatch. All in all, here are my personal takeaways from both the Metawatch article as well as these 3 September tournaments. As far as I'm concerned, the GW stance on Space Marines is nothing short of disappointing, and while they have hinted at the next balanced data slate hitting towards the end of October, I have my doubts that we are going to see any major Space Marine changes or points drops. After all, according to GW, the poor Space Marine win rate is due to beginners, as well as opponents being well familiar with them. All sass aside, I would of course welcome some long overdue points drops, for troops in particular, which in turn would benefit our kill teams. The Metawatch article aside, September has been a rather quiet month for Deathwatch, with low tournament attendance. Nonetheless, Mikael Klangeby and his signature double Indomitor list has once more demonstrated its potency, and spoiler alert for the upcoming October tournament results, this is by far the last time we will hear about its success. As mentioned earlier, the main takeaways here are both the inclusion of the Tomb of Ectoclades as a mini-extremis, as well as our newly gained ability to pursue the more passive game plan in many instances, thanks to the reworked War Zone Nephilim secondaries. Furthermore, we have seen yet another appearance of Flamer-heavy Proteus kill teams, a great way to build kill teams in case the TO is allowing the auto-hitting Flamers to count for Specialism Extremis, which is always something worth checking beforehand. Last but not least, while perhaps a bit less of a competitive pick, I really love the Inquisitor, 3 Redemptors and the Fire Raptor combo, perhaps the kind of Garage Hammer list worth looking into in case you were eyeing the Fire Raptor model, which is fantastic as far as I'm concerned, and are in need of a new pro check in case they will discontinue our Army of Renown coming January. Anyway, while I would make several adjustments to that list as previously mentioned, this has certainly been inspirational to me. To wrap things up, over the course of the video, we have looked at both the recently released Metawatch article published on Warhammer Community, as well as the following 3 September tournaments: Games of Westeros XII, the first Grand Tournament Grotkicken, and No Retreat 11. While Space Marine win rate has hit rock bottom together with AdMech at 39%, as far as I'm interpreting the Metawatch article, GW does not acknowledge any real concerns for Space Marines, claiming that the poor win rate is due to both a huge number of beginners as well as opponents being too familiar with these kind of armies. Needless to say that both Space Marine attendance and win rates at major tournaments say otherwise. And for similar reasons that beginners pick up this army, you can bet that if Space Marines were really all that great, a large majority of meta chasers worth their reputation would jump on them instantly. In short, this recent article does not bode well for the upcoming balanced data slate later this month. On the brighter side of things, Mikael Klangeby's Army of Renown list keeps delivering, and if anything, his continued success reinforces my advice to not do any drastic changes at this point. It is likely for the best to just wait and see what will happen to our Army of Renown and our Space Marines in general. For those already eyeing non-Army of Renown alternatives, I think we have also seen a solid case for including an Agent of the Imperium and the good old Redemptor Dreadnoughts, which are still a solid pick for any Space Marine army given the lack of recent alternatives. So that's it for the Deathwatch September tournament results and the recent Metawatch article posted on Warhammer Community. What do you guys think about the horrendous Space Marine win rates? And do you agree with the assessment of GW? What do you think the upcoming balanced data slate has in store for us? And last but not least, what recent changes have you been doing to your own lists? Let me know in the comments. Finally, I would also like to mention that there is a SwissHammer Facebook page where I will be posting links to my videos as well as articles I find of interest. I do read a lot about the hobby, but not all of it will always end up as its own video. I look forward to seeing you there as well. I do also have a Patreon page. If you like my content, any additional support is greatly appreciated as it helps me invest into future videos. As always, thank you very much for watching, guys. Your continued support is greatly appreciated. I hope you have been enjoying this video. Give me a thumbs up if you did, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thanks again and see you next time.